Now let's begin with the three basic questions. The first one is, what is 5% of 40? So here is our mathematical language. We'll translate. What is means a number, right? So we'll write that as number. Is means equal to 5%. Percent means out of 100. So it is 5 out of 100. Of means multiplication and the number 40. Do you get that part? So first is to translate the phrase or the statement into algebraic language, right? Again, 30% means, you got it, 30 out of 100. Of means multiplication. So 30% of what? So what means number n is equal to and 60. So read it. 30% of what is 60? Do you get it? 30%. So this is now onwards your language whenever we solve percent questions. 80 is, that means just the number 80, is what means n. Now it is what percent. So what is combined with percent? So it is n over 100. Be careful about this part. Of 60 means times 60. Do you agree with me? So this is the first part, that is, you need to write the sentence in the form of an equation as you read. So it doesn't really take time. So let's go to it. What is 50%? What is 5% of 40? So n is what? Now it is easy to calculate. So sometimes you may have to rearrange, sometimes not. So if not, then you could like cancel. Do you see this? Simplify. You could divide this by 2 and divide this by 2. You get the number as 2. So what is 5% of 40? It is 2. Is that clear? 30% of what is 60? If you want to simplify, you may and then rearrange and write n. So you say n is on the other side. When you take multiples, it becomes divisors. You have to flip them, right? So it is times 10 over 3. Do you get that part? So it's kind of cross multiply. Okay, now we can simplify. We divide this by 2, so it is 200. Is that clear? Now we are saying 80 is equals to n over 100. You could do this or leave it for the n. So n is cross multiply. So we have 80 times 10 over 6. Is that clear? Right? So it is like some 100, but let's multiply, divide 8 by 6. So it goes 1 times 20, 6 times 3, and then again 20, 133. Do you get the idea? It is of course 0.33 also when you're getting into decimals. So that is the very first part. Now let's also see how to estimate, right? So you could calculate, very easy. You could also estimate. Now these two techniques are very important. Estimate is, I think, very important. So when I say 5%, that means what? I could do half of 10%. Is that okay? So 10% is, 4, right? So it is 4 out of 2, which is 2. Does it make sense to you? At times that may be a faster calculation. So we are saying 5% of, we know what 10% is. Always 10 and 1% is good. Or you could say 1% of 40 is what? 1 out of 100, right? So 0.4, 0.4. Some students are not conversant with, good enough for decimals. And then 5% will be what? Multiply by 5, right? 0.4 times 5. You again get 2. So these are alternate methods of doing the same calculation. Do you agree with me? Now you could adopt any of these methods to solve your question in the test. Depending on the numbers, some method may be preferred, okay? Which we'll come to know at the end of the exercise when to use which strategy. Now here also, when we say 30% of what is 60, So that means the quantity is much bigger than 60, right? Now, if I say 50% of what is 60, then we are looking for something as twice this, which is 120, but it is more than 120. So we know this answer is approximately more than even 180, right? So you can estimate this answer. So it is more than 120, you can say, right? Because 30% is this, right? So that means 10% will be what you could think like this, right? Similar as the next question, 80 is what percent of 60? So 80 is higher. So here we know it is higher than 100. Now this strategy, estimating, helps you to eliminate some of the choices, and that is one way of answering multiple choice questions faster. You're getting my point, right? So that is why we are discussing this. So I hope that helps. Now let's begin and solve our questions in a very efficient way. The question is, a salesperson's commission is K% of the selling price of cars sold. Which of the following represents the commission in dollars on 2 cars sold for $15,000? So it is a commission K%. So as soon as you read K%, it means K out of 100 of selling price. Of means times. What is the selling price? 2 cars for 15,000 each. Do you get the idea, right? So as soon as you write this, you know what to do. 2 zeros gone, right? Multiply 150 by 2. What do you get? 300 K. Don't forget that part. And the option A is the right option. Correct? So that is how you're going to answer. It doesn't take even a minute. Next person. I ate 25% of 24 slice pizza, and then my sister ate 25% of leftover. What percent of original pizza remained? So we want what remained. Do you understand? Not how much we ate. You getting the idea? So think like this. So I should write 0.75 or let me write 75%. 75% remains when you eat 25%. Does it make sense? 100 minus, right? Or you could do in decimals. 0.75, right? So 75% remains when you eat 25%. That is what the concept here is. Do you get the idea, right? So if that is the case, we are talking about what percent of pizza remained. So when I ate 25%, 75% remained, and then leftover my sister ate again 25%. So again what left was 75% of that. Do you get an idea, right? So that is the first part. So we just need to multiply these to get our answer. So that is how you could do it. So 75 times 75, 5 times 5, 25, 2, 37. 7 times 5, 35, 3. 49 plus 3 is 52. So when you add them, you get this. Now the estimate is 25, 25, it means around. So we do an estimate. So let's do estimate. Estimate is around 50%, around, and we get that 56.25. So clearly the answer is A. Does it make sense to you? Right? So that is how we have to answer such questions. So in the case when we are eating away and we want what remains, we have to look into 1 minus or 100% minus what has been eaten, then work with that number to get the right answer. Okay? Next question here is, in mega sale, a computer store is offering 40% discount on already existing 80%. That means already 80% discount is there. Find the final sale price of the computer whose actual price is this. That means discounted price, right? So we are starting with 1800. what is the discount? On this, you have to have a discount of 80%. That means how much you pay. So discount is this. So what do you pay? This is what you have to say. So if 80% you don't have to pay, you have to pay 20%. You get an idea? And on that, there's a discount of 40%. So you have to pay 60%. You get an idea. This is what we are talking about. So much lesser. Perfect. So of course we have a number in hundreds, which is our answer. But what is that number? So these are the numbers to multiply. Does make sense to you? Correct? So that is how we are going to get the answer. So I hope that makes sense. Correct? 60 over 100 I should have written. So anyway, so okay, so whatever. So now what we have to do is to simplify. So let me write 60 over 100. Now let's simplify. So these two zeros go. These two zeros will go with this. So you have to multiply 18 by 12 to get your answer, right? So if you can do direct, or if you don't direct, it's 96, right? So 6 and 9 and 12 and 9 is 21, and so C is the right option. Perfect. Or you could do 2 times 8, 16 and go about. No problems. But I hope you get an idea. So you have to first decide, if given some percent, do we take the same number or we take 100 minus that number? So from the question, you should be in a position to take that decision. That's a critical decision to answer such question. And how do you get along with it? It is by estimating. So what do you estimate? 80% off, that means you just pay 20%, right? So 10% is 180, right? 360 is 20%, and then you do 40, half of that. Do you understand? So you get this estimate also. You get an idea. So you could do that. So that is to say, let me redo here. So we are saying 80% off, that means you pay 20%, right? Correct? So you pay 20%. So 20% will be 360. Now 40% off. So you pay 60%. So multiply this by 6. So, right? So 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 3 is 18, and 321. You get your answer. So you could apply the discount twice instead of doing it at the same time, right? So you could do that. So I hope that makes sense, right? Okay, let's move on and see how to do the next question. Now this one is slightly more trickier than the previous ones. So we'll combine percentages. A box was 3/4 full. I took out 30 candies. This was 20% of the candies in the box. How many candies were in the full box? So when we say how many candies in the full box, so this is what that number we are looking for, right? So we say n. So that is that number which we are looking for. Now the box is 3/4 full. So let's do of this number 3/4. This is the first thing, right? So we have taken care of 3/4. So box was 3/4 full. I took out 30 candies. This was, so 30 is 20% of these candies. Do you see? So what we are saying is 20% of above is 30. This was 20% of the candies in the box, right? So that is what we are saying. So 20% of above means my equation will be what? I have to do 20% of all this. 20 out of 100. Of means times. Is means equal to 30. Does it make sense to you? So that is how we get a neat equation. Correct? Now this could be simplified, and then we could get our answer. So in this particular case, it's kind of easier to simplify here. Correct? Now, what is n equals to? So n is equals to 30 times 5 times 4 divided by 3. So that gives you 10, and so we get a number which is 200. So option C is the right option. Does it make sense to you? So that is how we have to work with these numbers. This is a very important question. Just go through it once again and try to understand the logic, and also visualize how do you find n from such an equation. Okay? Now, another important question on percent. In an election, 5.2 million votes were shared between two candidates. Elected candidate received 52,000 more votes extra than the other. What percent of 5.2 million votes were in his favor? Perfect. So some of you might get confused with these numbers. You have to get used to it. 5.2 million. So it means 5 million means 6 zeros. Do you understand? So when it is 0.2, so it is kind of like this. So that is 5.2 million. Now, the other person receives more by how much? 52,000. So this is here. Do you see this? 52,000. Now, look into percent wise. Since I moved, if I move one place, it is 10%, and I may move two places away. Check how this is the basic concept, right? Do you see that? So this is 10%. 10% will be 52,000. 520,000 is 52,000. That means this number is 1% more. So he got how much? He got 1% extra. So that is what key is. He received 52,000 more means he got 1% extra. You get an idea. So we are given 51% these numbers. If this is 51, what will make it 100? The other person is getting 49, right? If it is 50, the other person is getting what? 0.9 less than, so 49.9. 50.5 means what? It means 49.5, correct? 50.05 means 49.95, correct? And 55 means 45. Now here, what is the number which gives you 1% extra? Only 1% extra, right? So here you see 1% extra. 50.5 and 49.5 gives you 1% extra. So that is how you could see this question and answer it quickly. So if you have similar question in the test, this is the best method to adopt. Next question here is, the data below provides the fish population in a lake over the past 5 years. Determine the year over which the percent increase in population is greatest. Now what is percent increase? So change divided by original times 100. So percent increase, let's write down what is percent increase. So if I say percent increase, it means change divided by original times 100. So we have to see the change divided by original. You get an idea, right? So it is kind of a ratio. Now if you see the change here, it becomes 2 times. The difference is 120. Do you see that? Analyze this situation. Change is 120. That means percent increase is how much? So in this case, change is 120. So it could be written as 120 over original amount, 120 times 100. So it is 100%. Do you see that? So doubling means 100%. Now if you see the other cases, less than double. 240 double is 480, it is 400, less than double, less than double. So initially you might get an idea that this is huge number, 700 more, right? But 700 more out of 750 is less than 100%. It may be close to 95%, right? So in the very first year, it is 100%, much, much higher than the other years. And therefore, even without calculation, looking at it, looking at the change, the ratio in which it is increasing, we get our answer. Option A. Does it make sense to you? So that is how we should be answering such questions. Perfect. Now let's move on to a very important set of questions which are based on markup. Now I've taken up two questions on this markup. We'll adopt a method I'll share with you, and then that is the method to be adopted to answer all the questions based on markup. Question here is, the selling price of an item is 160. If the markup is 20% of cost, find the cost of the item. So what you need to understand is this small table in which we'll write down all solutions related to this topic: cost, markup, and selling. Correct? So as you know, cost and markup add to selling. So if I have cost C, markup as M, if I add them, what I get selling price. Correct? Very simple form. You add markup on the cost price to get your selling price. Perfect. And as far as the percent goes, we are always talking about 100% of this. So this is like fixed. Okay. Now let's read the question. It says what? In our question, it is selling price of an item is 160. So we are given the selling price is 160. Okay. To fill this up. If markup is 20% of cost, markup is 20%. That is given to us, right? We need to find the cost price. We need to find the cost price. So, cost price we don't know, we need to find. Let's call it C. Now look at it. 100 plus 20 is 120%. Right? So this means 120% of cost is selling price. Okay? How will you read it? Let's get back to the very first video. First part of our video. That means 120% of cost is selling price. Do you get it? So that gives you your equation and also the solution. Perfect. So right, 120% means 120 over 100 times cost equals to 160. And now just rearrange and get your answer. So I hope this is not difficult, right? These are all rounded figures. So that gives you that cost is 160 cross multiply. 100 goes on the top and this 120 comes in the denominator. First step, cancel zeros, right? Second, just simplify. So 12, 4 times 3 and 4 times this goes 40. So 400 divided by 3. So what we have is 400 divided by 3, which is 133 recurring. Do you see that? So 133 is close to 130. That becomes your answer. Is that clear? So that is how you're going to do questions related to markup. Cost plus markup is equals to selling price. Always markup is on the cost price, so we take it as 100. Now in this case, we were given 160 as the selling price. That means 120% more than cost is sales price of 160. Simple language, rearrange to get your answer. Perfect. Now the last question is for you to attempt. Try to make the table and answer this question. It says, find the selling price of an item if the markup of 40% is $60. So let's again make it. You can actually pause the video, answer this question, and then see my solution, right? So that is a very simple cost, markup, and selling price, correct? So what we are saying here is that, let's say this is our cost, we'll add to markup and get selling price. What are we given? We are given that find selling price. So we have to find this of an item. If markup of 40%, this is 40%. If markup of 40% is $60, so this is $60. Does it make sense to you? So you have to get used to this language. Okay, so markup of 40% is $60. Perfect. We need to find the selling price. Now, how to do it? So one way is very clear. Let's take it 100 here. Do you see that? And let's just see. Now 40% of cost is 60. So we are saying 40% of cost is 60. Do you get it? Markup of 40% is 60 and markup is always based on cost. So 40% of cost is 60. So we'll do 40 over 100 times C equals to 60. So you could rearrange and answer. Find C. So C will be equal to 60 times 100 over 40. Cross multiply. This goes up, that comes down. And now divide. And 4 goes 2 times 5, and here it goes 30. So it is cost is equal to 150. This is cost of 150. So what is the selling price? We need to find selling price. You have to add these two and then you get 210, which is option C. Don't mark A as your option. You're getting my point. So this is where we conclude. I hope you have learned most of the concepts which are commonly utilized for answering percent-based questions. Feel free to write your comments and share your views. If you have questions, post them. And if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for watching and all the best.